Dedication. To whom should this knowledge be dedicated? What purpose will this instruction play in our lives? When and where do we see the physical evidence that this insight plays a role in the lives of every individual as much as we can see the law of gravity affect our personal lives? Can instruction, knowledge, understanding just be relevant to each individual conscious being? Is it just really to each his own? Can we readily find that there are principles and rules in life that, when applied, affect and effect every aspect of our reality, regardless of background, race, birthright, and origin? We can certainly admit to the fact that no matter who you are, you obey and respect the law of gravity. We enjoy its discernible benefits, as well as its immediate, dire consequences if we break this most basic law. People will jump off tall buildings to their deaths to escape their painful present realities, while others will jump off from much higher altitudes to experience the exhilaration of falling from an airplane with the safety of a parachute. The law of gravity plays its role all the same. With that being said, the probability is that your life is at effect. Consider the word effect. The definition says that it is a change, that it is a result or consequence of an action or other cause. Its verb form means to cause something to happen or to bring about. Isaac Newton described through the laws of physics that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, cause and effect. In simpler terms, it has also been described as you reap what you sow, and what goes around comes around. People at times feel like their lives are the result and at the mercy of outside influences beyond their control. This may be true to a certain extent, but do we realize that these laws of physics work in our lives whether we consciously know about them or not? Therefore, in the simplest form, this book was designed and dedicated for everyone who is currently reading this page as a result of whatever people, circumstances, or events had to take place in order for you to be here in this instant in time, now, reading this exact sentence. Everyone who is at cause or at effect, you. Before reading this book, please check with your professional advisors, psychologists, psychiatrists, rabbi, priest, pastor, church leader, politician of preference, anyone whose guidance and opinion you feel are better than yours. For that matter, you are certainly encouraged to pray to your choice of deity and ask permissions to read this book. You must know simply that everything I say in this book is simply my opinion in written form. And there are many people who may strongly disagree with these statements. No one has a monopoly over knowledge and information. So under the First Amendment or moral law, my free speech is being expressed naturally. Doing anything written in this book without the supervision of those who you have given your approval to supervise your actions, you will do so at your own risk. The publisher and the author, the distributors and bookstores present this information for educational purposes only and for your entertainment. I am not prescribing medical treatment or offering financial advice or legal advice, for I do not hold the proper titles or licenses to do so. So this book is only my opinions, my thoughts, my conclusions. Again, it is for educational purposes only, and you and only you are responsible if you choose to do anything based on what you read in this book. An introduction to part 1 of Blueprint for Immortality. If I have seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. End quote. Isaac Newton. To preface, the content of this book will be to write a book as big as the Bible. To try to read it may excite some, but it will most likely turn off most. In essence, what we want as humans who just love instant gratification is to find instant answers, the shortest, quickest way from point A to point B. Or we may just want to enjoy the scenery, which means that getting from point A to point B is getting from where we are not doing what we want to the point where we are doing exactly what we want, enjoying the scenery. But we want it now. As such is the case, it will be briefly described in simple and ready-to-use terms without going on a long-winded explanation why the principles described in the content of this book will absolutely get us from our point A to point B. They are exactly what we need to know and not just know about. It may be said that being impatient is a weakness, but have we considered that it could be a strong point that we all have? Technology may be a witness, a testament to that reality. We are learning and experiencing faster than ever before, and it continues to add discernible value to our immediate present reality. We can now instantly contact anybody on the other side of the globe, while just over 150 years ago, it would have taken weeks or months or even years for information to arrive at its destination. So maybe it is our mission to impatiently create better lives so we can just enjoy life more patiently and plainly. Or is it the other way around? Do we patiently create better lives so we can impatiently live more fully? Maybe both are true. I'll let you decide. The point is that we want to improve every facet of our lives instantly. In this instant, our desires are obviously relevant only to each his own. While one person may desire a simple life in the woods, in a log cabin where nature is more accessible, another may readily jump at the excitement of competing against themselves or others to attain a fast-paced life in a major city full of life. A person may want a little of both worlds, and there's nothing wrong with that. So whatever experience we desire to attain to now, we generally want more of that physical, emotional, and mental, as well as spiritual wealth. Through the quantum physical definition, I believe it tells us that we just want more energy intensified. Science has plainly described to us that the deeper we observe the universe, whether outwardly or inwardly, whether we are observing the macrocosmos or the microcosmos, that our power of observation is teaching us that we are only observing the infinite universe of infinite energy. There may be a debate in the concept that the universe may or may not be infinite. I personally believe there's more evidence of the reality of an infinite universe. But we can all agree that the current understanding is that everything in the universe is energy, vibration, or frequency. In the same manner that we may desire to build something as tangible as a house, we know we need its most basic components: wood, metal, nails, etc. Then we must readily accept that if we know, by definition, not just know about the most basic components of all matter in our physical universe, then we'll be able to build better and more consistently. Consider the field of science as it relates to healthcare. During the 1800s, we learned that doctors were going into surgery with unwashed hands and using medical tools that were not properly cleaned and sanitized. The mortality rate in the delivery room was catastrophic. Women had a higher chance of survival when giving birth at home than trying to deliver in the hospital. It was discovered that doctors were going into the delivery room with contaminated hands. They were carrying agents causing a fatal disease. How? After teaching a post-mortem examination in class, they would fail to clean their hands. The so-called doctors were careless about their practice and trusted mothers that had to pay with their lives. Even after providing evidence of the positive results of scrubbing one's hands before every procedure and clearly showing the mortality rate becoming zero, the medical establishment proceeded to vilify, ostracize, and finally have him discharged from the prestigious positions in maternity hospitals, haunted by the fact that hundreds of thousands of women continue to die. Dr. Samowitz eventually died of insanity in 1865, end quote, from Let's Cure Humanity by Robert Barefoot. This was a gross result of injustice, prejudice, and pride, as well as abuse of authority, a consequence of willful ignorance. This is but one example among many cases of injustice. Since this was the case, the real heresy is the continuous idea that insists on permeating people's minds, believing that we know all there is to know. Obviously, there is the idea that the more we know, the more we realize how much we don't know. The status quo keeps on being challenged. Those who are, in essence, on top of the status quo will not accept resistance and many times will persecute those who threaten their current power, even if it means overstepping on other people's rights and free will. Albert Einstein was quoted as saying, quote, "Great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds," end quote. I personally believe this to be a sad reality seen throughout history. Quote, "What we know is a drop. What we don't know is an ocean," end quote, by Isaac Newton. Newton's principle of success help us to be fully aware that our present knowledge, whether individual or collective, is but a fraction of what it could potentially become. So by keeping a keen observation of those who may have achieved more than what our present growth may be, we should always consider that our personal or collective status quo of knowledge is what we know so far. We must understand this law as individuals and as a collective society if we are to progress. And when we experience a different opinion or understanding, we must never shut our eyes to the possibility of others' discernment, points of view, or frame of mind. Therefore, the scientific method, that of taking a question, doing background research, and taking every possible piece of data without bias, constructing a hypothesis, then testing it through honest experimentation, analyzing the results to form a conclusion, is indispensable. For this process is of utmost importance when taking and establishing new knowledge. This method has allowed us to go out into outer space and create powerful methods of enhancing our immediate experience. Therefore, if we feel that our beliefs are being challenged, we should consider the possibility that most likely we don't have the whole truth or the only truth. Considering other points of view may enforce what we feel we already know and therefore give us more conviction of our personal or general understanding of what makes our world work or not work. It can help us discern what creates success or what does not create success based on tangible, real-life results. And if we find that our current understanding is not working, we must toss the idea and be open to a better one for our own good and that of others. This is the logical scientific method that can propel us positively forward without judgment or willful ignorance. This takes us to our immediate present life, for in connection with this thought, we must fully integrate honesty in our personal lives. Do we have the evidence that our life is better and improving every day, or are we regressing? But as we sit back and observe our personal circumstances, that surround our immediate lives do we feel appreciation and gratitude. When we reflect back on our lives as we grew up to this personal point in our lives, do we feel strong, powerful recognition because we had every advantage given to us to achieve the great success that we have now achieved? Do we feel empowered now in this instant in time as we observe our immediate reality? Are we where we want to be? Did you know that there is a war being waged against you and your mind, just so they can profit from you and your loved ones' negative emotional outputs? Did you also know that it is by making you mentally sick and incapable that powerful forces in this world are prospering beyond belief, all in the name of personal gain and advantage? Did you know that, like trash or disposable property, human beings are no longer being born to life, but are grown to become just another form of resource? For those few who acknowledge and recognize their life as blessed, you must be congratulated, for you have harnessed powerful thinking patterns that will continue to enrich your life. But most likely for you personally, as you are reading this book, you may feel less than gratitude and appreciation for your personal circumstances. You may feel that there is much to be wanted in your life. Feelings of despondency and dissatisfaction might overwhelm us at times, making us depressed and stressed because our lives have less than desirable outcomes. Maybe we look at our finances and feelings and thoughts of anxiety and hopelessness are triggered. Maybe as we look to our personal relationships, we wonder how we could improve such emotional rights. Also, maybe as we go through our day, we continue to examine that our feelings are consistently negative because every day we realize our lives are not getting better. Or it could also be that we have more than we could ever need and realize that we have privileged lives but can't help to continue to feel unfulfilled and generally unhappy. It is all designed to blind us from one powerful truth. This truth is so empowering to the individual that comprehension of it has made them use exorbitant amounts of money and resources to maintain this demented, finely orchestrated illusion just to keep us convinced otherwise. Throughout this book, it will be explained with scientific data why the general population is being oppressed and suppressed. The problem is that people are not aware who the enemy is nor how to fight against it. This system's inner workings are so complex that it has convinced the entire world that we are free and happy even though we are enslaved. Before revealing this personal truth that will empower us, we must be aware of a specific mental attitude and avert it. Instead of feeling like victims or circumstances beyond our control, we must decide to be a cause over it. The great thing about taking control is that not a single literal blow of violence will have to be taken. There will be no need for unnecessary coups or mass protests or the use of any sort of violence. In reality, our real power comes from our own blueprint for immortality. It is a powerful force that will drive us to infinite progress. It is the laws of quantum physics that have aptly helped us to demonstrate it simply, and they have proven that this power is hidden in every individual, including yourself. We must exercise the mental attitude that a colorful speech by General S. Patton successfully bred into the minds of literal soldiers of war before going into battle. Quote, "No bastard ever won a war by dying for his country. He won it by making the other poor dumb bastard die for his country." End quote. Our determination is mainly acknowledging that we must drive the force of our thoughts to win this war by taking back our individual sovereignties. People readily admire heroes for their ability to persevere under pressure and win. We must not be afraid to show courage, for it is our moral obligation to accept the sting of battle and love it. We must develop the mental ability to decide to win this war, for our lives and the lives of our loved ones have suffered because of our ignorant inaction. We have stood in neutrality for far too long, and our very physical health and emotional well-being have been paying the price. We must readily understand who the enemy is and make them die for their cause in life. Patent Express, we're going to cut out their living guts and use them to grease the threads of our tanks. End quote. When in battle, we may chicken out, but the second you put your hand into a bunch of goo that a moment before was your best friend's face, you will know what to do. End quote. Obviously, these phrases here in these sentences are metaphorical, but it may be very literal, for it is the quality of our lives that continues to pay the price. This is a real life war, and we must harness our own resources and weapons and learn how and when to use them, because it is our personal lives and those whom we love the most that have been enslaved. We must understand the basic truths of our most powerful innate abilities. The symbol portrayed on the cover of this book represents the following concepts and will serve as a reminder of the unfathomable power and ability that we personally carry. Our potential is truly infinite. The axioms for this personal potential will be referred as the following. The triad of knowledge. Quote, if the genius of invention were to reveal tomorrow the secret of immortality, of eternal beauty and youth, for which all humanity is aching, the same inexorable agents which prevent a mass from changing suddenly its velocity will likewise resist the force of the new knowledge until time gradually modifies human thought. End quote, by Nikola Tesla. Quote, for truly I say to you, if you have faith the size of a mustard grain, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. End quote. Quote by Jesus Christ in Matthew 17:20. Quote, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. End quote, by Napoleon Hill. Throughout the pages of this book, you will examine data from three of the most fundamentally accepted sources of information: science, spirituality, and success philosophy. Although incongruences may be found within and between the sources of information, it is through common denominators which are found within these sources that we will observe and prove how we can harness these truisms. From the field of quantum physics, classical physics, DNA biology, archaeology, cosmology, and from spiritual and philosophical sources such as the Bible and other publications that have been accredited for our benefit. In this book, we focus more on the world of quantum physics and spirituality to examine what creates success and what does not create success. We will also examine how general spiritual beliefs and other philosophical teachings perfectly parallel new lessons in the field of quantum physics. All three fields are suggesting, according to its findings, that these fields of knowledge are essentially giving light to powerful common denominators of practical data. They are lessons about the universe just taken from a different frame of mind. They are different sets of filters of perception describing our reality. Since these ideas will be observed throughout this book, they will be examined from the simplest form of understanding in connection to success and then explain how it relates to a few quantum experiments and then brought back to the principle. Quantum physics is now proving and describing what has been known as true spiritual beliefs. These fields of knowledge have revealed that they are also, in essence, laws of the physical universe. Certain individuals have integrated these abilities and principles into their life to create mind-blowing lifestyles. Thus, for some, it has been their absolute desire to share their discoveries. Andrew Carnegie is one of the foremost examples of financial success, for his ability to acquire wealth and financial prosperity was remarkable. It will be proven undoubtedly how you can use the same laws and principles that he used so you can personally apply them toward your own personal desires and endeavors in life, whatever they may be. Universal principles will be expounded upon through common denominators, as they are defined through these windows of knowledge or different frames of mind. They are all mental perceptions ultimately looking at the same thing. The scientific method is required through observational experimentation to establish real-life empirical evidence to establish infallible understandings. We will prove how certain knowledge and understandings have been hidden and purposefully mystified to obscure people's minds of the ultimate truth in their personal lives. It has to do with the true definition of free will and freedom. It is the place where we make the rules and our personal outcome as we decide it must happen. It is the understanding that we are our own genie that can grant every one of our own wishes. To build a foundation, in chapter 1, we will examine a very well-known but mystified story in the scripture. We will show how Moses was sort of a scientist looking to acquire physical evidence as proof of empirical evidence. Whether you believe in this story or not, there are valid principles we can derive as easily as a public speaker or teacher uses allegories or illustrations to make a point. In the biblical reference, the record of Moses and the Red Sea is accepted by many as historical. If you don't personally believe it to be, please keep an open mind to at least just some of the lessons we will take in and how the scientific method is relevant to the entire story. Keep in mind, the book will examine all forms of authority, from experts in the field of science to experts in the field of spirituality and philosophy. We may want to strongly consider that both concepts of spirituality and philosophy have virtually always been the study and understanding of energy and how it relates to our immediate experience or reality. This is true since we all accept that the universe is nothing but energy, vibration, or frequency. In essence, everything is energy vibrating at different frequencies. A list of authority references will be made in this book that the reader may have the free will to examine through his own cognitive reference and point of view. In this book, every effort has been made to point the reader to someone who has real-life evidence to highlight what is being described thereof is true. Which brings us to the point that also studying those who may have empirical evidence in the field of finances or money will derive us incredible benefit. Isaac Newton's quote at the start of this preface in essence testifies to that truth. To what end? In that together we come to the cognition and discovery, the awareness, the realization, and the truth about ourselves, that we have awesome power. The following statements were quoted a long time ago, but as mentioned before, they have been and will continually to be scientifically proven as the truth about us, humankind. The triad of knowledge. Quote, if the genius of invention were to reveal tomorrow the secret of immortality, of eternal beauty and youth, for which all humanity is aching, the same inexorable agents which prevent a mass from changing suddenly its velocity will likewise resist the force of the new knowledge until time gradually modifies human thought. End quote, by Nikola Tesla. Quote, for truly I say to you that if you have faith the size of a mustard grain, You will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. A quote by Christ Consciousness. Quote, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. End quote. Napoleon Hill. Obviously, these authorities of knowledge are not the only ones who have been quoted as saying something of the like. But as previously stated, this book is going to prove with hard scientific evidence that what the biblical accounts as well as other true philosophical teachings have been describing all along are easily more discernible by the field of quantum physics. This emphasizes plainly that the field of quantum mechanics is giving light to spiritual phenomena or events described as miracles. Scientists are now theorizing the possibilities of instant transmissions of large masses from one place to another. Other reliable sources are testifying that this is already being done. They are also believing the possibility of being able to walk through walls and communicating instantly with other dimensions. It will be plainly shown how all of it relates to our own personal success, whatever we choose that to be. Now back to the story of Moses.